Hi everybody, this is Dave with Patriot Laser Engraving. Today I want to talk about burning photos onto anodized aluminum business cards. This is something that's been a huge topic of debate. You can see it out there in the forums, out on Facebook forums and other places. I just wanted to talk about how simple this is to actually do. It's not very hard, but I will say that it does require piles and mounds of cards that you'll go through as you try to get your settings down. Anybody that tells you that you can be successful with a fiber laser engraver without having piles of cards or heaps of tumblers that you've messed up to get your book of secrets and your settings, they would be lying to you. So I've done a lot of the work already in advance on this particular subject, and I will tell you that there are a few things that I learned that helped me to get to some level of proficiency. Now, what I will say is that I do have some learning and growing to do when it comes to this. I'm learning every day, but I will tell you that I can try to make this a little bit easier for you, give you some tips, some things that might help. You are going to have some variances with your laser depending on the make, the model, the type that you have, and so on and so forth. So, without further ado, let's just jump right into it. But first, I want to thank you for viewing the video and for liking and subscribing to my channel. I'm trying to build this up and create a place that you could go to that will have some basic 101 level knowledge on how to do fiber laser engraving. I have a 30-watt Raycus laser, middle of the line type of laser, nothing real high end, nothing real low end either at the same time. It's very capable and it does a lot of great work for me. And I have made quite a bit of money off the laser in just a short period of time, and it's well paid for itself. What I'd like to tell you is that I know that there is a new version of EZCad out. I'm using version 2.14.10. I have not installed the new version yet. I haven't bothered with it just to go through all the settings and configuration and fine-tuning to get it where it needs to be. I'll probably do that at a later date and review it and decide what features I like. But there are some new features and it is better, but it's certainly not a 64-bit version. I don't have a 64-bit card, so it would be worthless for me to even do that. So I'm not even going to worry about it. I'm doing well just where it's at. First thing I want to talk about is the photograph that you need to use. The photograph that you're using has to be of high resolution and high graphic content. The higher the resolution, the better the image is going to burn on the card, or any surface for that matter. Well, how do you do that? Well, I go out to Google. I use Google Images. Now look, don't beat me up in the comments. If you're going to use an image for profit, unless you take the picture yourself or create the image yourself or you vector it yourself and you use it from the internet, and if it's a protected image, pay for it, do the right thing, don't plagiarize somebody else's work, do the best that you can. It's not always easy. I will talk about vector tracing in another video. I think you're really going to like it because I only use one application essentially when I vector trace, and I only do vector tracing on my iPad, so you're really going to like that video, so stay tuned for that. Now, typically, just for the purpose of this video and this demonstration, I'm going to Google Images, and I'm going to search for the space shuttle. This happens to be what I like. I like space. Now, here's a little tip or a trick that you can use, and not a lot of people are aware of it, but if you click the Tools button right here next to the settings for Google Images, it'll pop down another menu just below, and you can select the size of the image that you want. I chose large. Choosing large gives me the option to see images that are of higher resolution. Certainly, if you wanted to see images, let's say, that are line drawing, you can come down here and select line drawing, and then you can see the result that that'll bring. Gives you an idea, right? In case you maybe want to do some vector imaging, some outlining, or whatever the case may be, this is a great place to start. All right, notwithstanding that, let's go back to AnyType again. We're looking for a photo. I had selected this photo here, and when I clicked on that, it takes me to a Wikipedia site. As we all know, if we're any kind of academic scholars, Wikipedia is not a scholarly source, but nonetheless, it sure is when you're looking for pictures. Here is the Endeavor photograph, and these are generally cropped and placed in this particular wiki. When I click that, it'll show me there are different resolutions for this photograph. I went straight for the highest resolution photo I can get, 3680 by 2448 pixels. And when I click on that, you can see the incredible amount of detail that this photograph has. Very, very high detail, high resolution photograph. I right-clicked it and I saved the image as, and the file is now in my downloaded folder. Back to EZCad. Hopefully that information will help you when you're searching for images, or if you're just looking for vector, source information or whatever you're looking to do. That would probably be a good tip to remember. Okay, into EZCad. Let's talk a little bit about what your settings need to be. But before we get into that, before we talk about what your settings are, let's talk about the iGaging EasyView DRO that I have mounted right here. I have a video out. It's actually my first video. It's so important to have this device that it was the first video I decided to produce. And I'm telling you, you cannot do photographs. You can, but you're going to be playing around. But doing photographs or any other repetitive work with a DRO, a digital readout, makes repeating the results far easier than you'll ever imagine. This will measure the vertical movement of my laser head to the hundredth of a millimeter. As you can see, my DRO is set at 106.35 millimeters. Now, typically what I do is I will bring my laser head all the way to the bottom. I'll floor it out as far down as it'll go. I'll hit the 0 button on my DRO and I'll zero it out. Then I'll raise it up to where I know my focal point is. In this particular case, my laser is zeroed at 99 millimeters for this particular lens. Again, this is a Raycus 30 watt. Your results may vary. You'll have to know where your focal point is, or all of this is pretty much going to be useless. So basically, having this digital readout is going to help you dial in the setting that you need based on what I'm going to tell you here just momentarily. I have a link in the video on where you can go ahead and purchase the EasyView DRO. I got mine from Amazon, and I will provide that link to where it's at. It'll depend on the length of the one you get, depending on the height of your column. Anyways, so back to what we're talking about here. I use these really inexpensive business card stock that you can get on, I think I got these again on Amazon, very cheap. I can post a link for those as well. These are 86 by 54 millimeters in size. These are your standard anodized aluminum business cards. What I will tell you is I use double stick tape. I don't put a lot underneath it because it'll make peeling it off of there very hard. You could bend the card, but this is the type of tape that I use. It's very thin. I typically get this at Hobby Lobby. Wherever you can find it, it's fine. You do need to mount it down. I put it on a piece of paper because I'm going to overscan, and I don't want it to mark into my surface because that is metal. The paper will absorb the light from the laser, and I shouldn't have any issues in burning into my paper. But that does add a height in here that you need to factor. The thickness of the paper will matter along with the thickness of your card. So this plus this will give you a different result here. So you need to know what those settings are depending on what you're going to do. If you're going to lay the card straight on your surface, that could matter. That could be 1/100th of a millimeter difference that gives you focus and sharpness and clarity. Another thing to keep in mind too is that when the laser hits this card, it's very thin metal, so it'll start to wobble or it'll warp a little bit when it's hitting it. A lot of people will tell you, nah, just lay the card down there, it'll be fine. That's not really true. You really want to kind of keep it from moving around as best that you can. That's why I use the tape, because this thing will buckle and move around a little bit. It could cause some focus issues, and you can have some blurry spots depending on how the laser hits the card. I'll talk about some of the settings in a minute, because you'll probably have experienced that if you have some of the settings enabled, this picture scan burn moves really, really slow, and it takes forever to burn a photo. If you do what I'm going to show you, you can reduce that time almost in half. It takes about 15 minutes to 20 minutes to burn a card in overscan mode. I say overscan mode. I mean by overscanning the card versus making a small little photo. In this particular case, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to overscan it and burn that. And then what I'll do is I'll pause the video while it's burning so we don't waste all your time. And then I'll come back and show you the end result. So let's talk about what do we do in EZCad. The first thing that I need to do is I need to set my space. So I'm going to create a square for the photo that I chose, and I happen to know this particular photo is in landscape mode. So I'm just going to go ahead and set this to the size of the card. I'm going to take away the perspective. I'm going to unlock the image so that I can change its X and Y size. I know that I'm going to be 86 millimeters and 54 millimeters. That's the size of the card. I'm going to hit apply and I'm going to center it. That's the size of my card. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark select. I always leave that on, mark select. I don't do this because, well, it's just a habit, I guess. If you leave mark select on, you're only going to mark what you're selecting on your display or on your canvas. If I had a larger job like I do typically for clients, I might throw all their objects on one workspace, and then I just pick the one I want, center it in the center the work under the laser, and then I burn it. This way I don't have multiple files. I'm not importing and exporting and closing and opening. That just consumes resources on a 32-bit system anyway. So I typically will leave the objects and I just leave mark select. It's pretty common sense. If you haven't played with this mark select button, you'll learn. You'll leave it off one day and thinking you're marking just one object and you're going to burn everything on your workspace. That's going to happen. Just forewarning you. But anyways, you're welcome for that. So I'm going to go ahead and center it. The next thing I like to do is turn the lock back on, because I don't know about you, but next time I import something, I want to adjust the size and I want to pinch the corners. I'll almost invariably forget that's off, and then I'm skewing the object out of proportion, and then I got to undo and then click it again and so on. So I always just kind of uncheck it, make my settings, check it back. Just a habit. Next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and light this so that I can see where it is on my screen. I'm going to dim my light here so you can see, and I'm going to center this on my workspace so that I have the square overlapping my card. Maybe a little bit hard to see with the macro view cam because it's really not the best high quality cam you can get, but it does the job. So there it is, fairly centered, good to go, good for a bleed. I'm going to go ahead and stop my light. I'm going to leave this square on the screen just for right now. There's a couple of ways to get your image in. You can either click this button here under the font icon to import, or you can select File, Import Bitmap. Now, it doesn't have to be a BMP. There's going to be a lot of people that'll tell you, oh, I bring it in from Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop or Microsoft Paint, or I adjust the resolution, or I do this, or I do that. Look, if you've got a high quality, high resolution photograph, you don't need to do anything to the photo pre-import, okay? You don't have to go in and dither it. You don't have to put it into some other software. You don't have to mess with it. You don't have to do any of that. So all I'm going to do in this particular case, I'm going to click the picture button. I'm going to go into my video folder here. I'm just going to pick the picture that I downloaded, and I'm going to say open. Now, there are some settings that I have, but you can see the photo is really large compared to my workspace here. Okay, well, that's by design because the photo is big, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to leave this proportion and scaling on. I know that the larger number represents the longer distance. Well, I know that my overscan set to 86 for the card, and it automatically takes it to 57. Well, we know the card width is 54, so we're going to be, 3 millimeters, a little over 3 millimeters. So I'm going to hit apply, and I'm going to center it, and I'm going to zoom back in on my spot here. Now, if I select the rectangle, you can see the squares for the rectangle appear right here, and you can see that my photo is over bleeding in those areas just enough to where I'm going to have a great bleed on that card. I'm going to go ahead and hide the square now so I don't inadvertently burn that. I'm going to select the shuttle photograph, and that's going to bring in all the options for the photo that you see here. Okay, so let's talk about our settings inside EZCad. So there are options under invert and power map, and you can extend all that. I'll talk about those. Let's just go ahead and start over on the power side. I've learned that the best speed is 200 for me on a 30 watt, power at 50, frequency at 30. Now I want to talk about frequency for a minute and dispel a rumor. People say, "Well, I've got a 30 watt Raycus, but I can put 20 in here." Yeah, you can. EZCad doesn't care what you put there. There's a hardware restriction on your kilohertz frequency for your Raycus. If you got a 30 watt Raycus, you're not going to burn at 20 kilohertz. It's going to go back default to 30. EZCad will take whatever you put in it, but the hardware will only output what it's capable of. I don't care what anybody says. Read your Raycus manual or read your laser manual. It's just physical limitations and restrictions on your device. Enough said. So I'm going to leave that at 20, 200, 50, and 30. All right, let's go over and talk about the photograph. I use fixed DPI at 1000 DPI. There's going to be a lot of folks that will say, well, you don't need it that high because you got a high resolution photo. I don't care what they say. I'm going to burn that at 1000 DPI onto my card. You can go lower. You can do whatever you want. These lasers are very capable of high quality, high DPI burning if you do it right. Okay, so I leave fixed DPI at 1000. The next thing I do is go down to this next box here where you can gray it, dither it, you can extend it. I don't do anything. I don't mess with the brightness. Now you could change your brightness and lighten it or darken it depending on the photo. You may not have a choice. If a client's provided you with a photo that might be dark, you might have to lighten it. Look, play with those settings if you need to. The photo that I chose needs no adjustment. I do invert it because that does make it proper on the card because the card is black. If I was burning on stainless steel, I don't know that I would invert. Okay. Okay. Bidirectional scan. That's a preference. I like to have it on because for me it seems to burn a little bit quicker. Drill mode for me I leave off. I don't think you'll need to worry about drill mode. For me, drill mode just means it gives me a pause as it's burning. I don't like that. It slows it down. If I had that enabled, it would slow this down tremendously. But you notice when I click that, the apply button highlighted. I've altered settings. I'm going to uncheck it and apply just to make sure I didn't change anything. Pixel power adjust, I leave on because it does affect the power map. And that's where I'm at. I've got my photo centered. I've got my settings made here. I've got my DRO set. I know that I'm at 99 in focus. I am a 7.35 plus focus. I'm autofocus up. Excuse me. I'm autofocus up by 7.35 millimeters. That's important because you're going to have to tinker with that. You'll see that as you start playing with your focus, that's going to be all the money right there. This is a starting point. I would start on your laser at 7.35 millimeters plus focus and work it from there. You may have to make a few test burns. The DRO will keep you where you need to be. So let's just go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and burn this so that you can see how it works. I'm going to get started on it, and then I'll have to pause it and come back because I don't want the video to record too long, and I'll just show you the end result. So let's go ahead and start marking. But you'll start seeing that the laser will start coming onto the card. It's in the paper right now because it's in the bleed space. And here just shortly it's going to catch up to where the card is, and it's going to start burning into the card. And that's just making up the gap in the space of the bleed. You could get real creative, I suppose. You can go into Photoshop and size the photo exactly to 86 by 54. I don't mess with it. Yeah, you lose a little bit of the picture, but in this particular case, who cares? So we're now onto the card and hitting the card. And again, I am at 106.35 on my DRO, which is the magic money number for me of my focus. Now, if I did not have the card taped down, it would be moving a little bit up and down, or it would be kind of warping a little bit as it moves. The laser head moves across the card. I don't like that variable, so I like to control that. So we're going to go ahead and pause the video. I'm going to let this burn, and we will return when it's finished. Okay, we're back, and you can see that the card is finished, and while the camera doesn't do it very much justice, you can see that it did actually burn the image very well, I thought. So that's really all there is to it. There's not a whole lot to creating photos on your laser. I'll tell you, the best thing to do is to play with your settings. Again, you'll need a really good way to repeat results. The EZView DRO was it for me. It seemed to be the hinge pin in everything that I did. I was able to dial things right in and repeat the results. So I was really pleased with how it actually worked. I think you will be too. Again, I'll put a link down there to where you can pick one of these up. If you're interested, put some comments out there. Tell me what you thought about the video, and let me know. I'm always looking for ways to do things better, certainly. And this is the second video I've produced, so I'm still fairly new at this, and I'm getting better every day. But looking forward to your comments. Like, share, subscribe, and thank you again. This has been Dave with Patriot Laser Engraving, and as always, have a great day.